Hello there survivors, and welcome back to another build tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended. Today I'm going to show you how to build this giant longhouse based on the one from Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It is a really cool looking build. You can of course do this without needing any mods. You can just use the vanilla pieces as I will do in the tutorial itself. But for this specific build, I use the Viking Builder's cosmetic, which is a really cool one. It is a premium skin, so you do have to purchase it, but I'm giving away some keys. So if you're watching this right as the video is released, head over to my Discord and you can participate in a giveaway for some of the keys. I always try to do that if I get the chance. But yeah, this is a very big longhouse, and I mean very big. It's well over the official limit for me. There might be some ways to get it underneath it by removing some of the decorations, as well as using actual large walls instead of just normal walls everywhere, but I'm not entirely sure if it can be done. So before starting, keep that in mind whether you want to risk going for it or not. Just as a rough number of reference, there's about 6,500 structures here for me in the fully decorated version that I have already skinned. In the one that I built for the tutorial, so the stripped down one, the vanilla version, there was about 5,700. So there's definitely some wiggle room that you could do, and of course you could leave out some parts. Either some of the details on top of the roof you could leave out, or maybe some of the side additions you could leave out and keep the walkways a lot clearer. And of course, using large walls will probably already save quite few things. But of course, you want to make sure that you're well under the limit so you can actually still decorate the base and use the base, because otherwise, yeah, kind of pointless to build all this if you can't place anything inside of it. So just be warned, if you're trying to do this unofficial, you might have to downsize some parts of it to make it work and fit. But if you do end up building this, you'll have the longhouse of longhouses. You'll have plenty of space. Along the outside, you've got walkways where you can easily park some of your tames. You've got multiple entrances around the entire build, as well as an aviary on top to park some of your flying friends. And of course, inside, you will find a huge amount of space. The main hall is big enough even for your Giga and Karcher breeding without any issues at all, so all of your tames can easily fit safely inside, as well as plenty of rooms to the side. If you do use the skins, you can easily have some greenhouses on the side, skin them to look like a nice Viking building, so no one is the wiser. And you'll have a dedicated crafting room all the way at the back, as well as a nice breeding and hatching room to the side of the main hall. Of course, plenty of living quarters as well, different rooms for you and all your tribe mates, or just plenty of room if you're playing it solo. This base offers a lot of space, but that shouldn't come as a surprise if you see the size of this. And of course, if you do like these types of videos and you want to continue to see more, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave suggestions for future build videos down in the comments below. And another word of warning, this is a very big structure we're about to build, so you definitely will need a decently flat spot to make it work the best, or at least the easiest way without needing a lot of finicking to get the foundations in place. What we want to do first is, well, we want to start placing down a foundation, and we want to start with 16 of these in total, so 16 in total all the way across, just like this. And we actually want to make sure it is too wide to start with. So this is going to be the front of the giant longhouse building, so it's going to go all the way back there into the field. So right now, of course, we have 2 on this side, and we need a lot more. In total, it's going to be 42, so that's quite a long way. But to keep it easy, we're going to do this in sections. First of all, we want to make sure that we make this 6 long. So 6 long in total, just like this, is where we get the first little addition. Basically, what we want to do is we will add 4 here in the middle just like that. And then we should be able to take out our triangles. So keep in mind that this is going to be those first 6. Then we want to have 2 triangles going out like this, 2 triangles going across like so, and then 2 triangles coming back in like this, which should all connect up, and it should have in total 4 by 2 foundations on the inside walkway. That means that on this side here we can do another little bit in between, which is going to be 4 long in total, so 4 of them. Then we want to have another section of 4 where we're going to have another one of these additions, so coming out by 2 triangles here on the outside, 2 triangles across, and then 2 triangles back into the middle. So here is going to be the gap of 4 with 2 of those little additions to the side and 6 at the start over there. Then here in this part, this little middle part, we again want to have a section that is going to be 4 long. And then in this part we'll add another little addition, but it's going to be different because it's going to be a side entrance. So for now we will add a layer like this, which sticks out by 2, just 2 in total, and it's going to go across by 6 in total. So just like that, bring that all the way back and connect it up again and make sure that we fill this all in. So this is going to be a nice big side entrance for this entire build. And then over here we can continue this by adding another section of 4, just as we have on the other side of this. And then once again we'll have a section of 4 like that, but then of course we're going to do one of these again, so out by 2 triangles here on the outside, 2 triangles here on the outside, and connecting that back up and filling it all in to make this full addition. And then here at the end we want to add 6 more, or like 6 long at least, foundations right over here, just as the way we started. So that in total should bring it up to 42, which is a freakishly long build, of course. And yeah, will definitely give you plenty of space eventually to utilize as your base. Then here at the back, it's actually quite simple. Just as at the front, we want to make sure that this is 16 going across. So right now it's just 6. We want to go a little bit further, just like this, and there we go. It should of course line up with the other side. And an easy way to test if we've done this correctly is going from the corner, leave open 4, then we'll have another little addition of a 2 by 2, another gap of 4 with another addition of a 2 by 2, and it should leave 4 over on that side. And of course here we'll want to add in some stairs again to make another entrance, but then here at the back of the building. Then over at the side, of course, we can continue a similar process. So this one we're going to make 6 long in total, just like this. Then we're going to add a section of 4 long in total, of course, where we'll add our triangles going out by 2 on the outside, 2 on the outside, and 2 on the outside coming back, and then just filling in the rest of this. Then once again, of course, we'll have another section that is 4 long, just like so, filling that all in. And then once again, of course, we have another addition, and this addition once again is going to come out by 2 in total, and then it's actually going into triangles, but this one is going to go have 3 triangles here on the outside. Then it's also going to have 3 triangles here on this side, and once again, of course, 3 triangles coming back like this, before of course we have the foundations again, so that we can all, and of course making sure to fill this all in so that we have this whole foundation ready to be used. And as you can see, it's clearly something different than the other side. The other side is going to be a main entrance. This is basically just another nice space that you can utilize. Then over here we'll continue these same patterns. We'll have a gap of 4 long just in total. Then we'll have another section of 4 long, but that is going to be another one of these little additions coming out by 2, another 2 on the outside, and another 2 going back in, just like that. Should line up perfectly with the other side as well. Another section of 4, filling that in just like so, and then of course another section of 4, just like this, and we'll have one more of these sections where these triangles are coming out by 2 on the outside, and fill it all in. And then of course the last remaining pieces, we can just fill it in until it's all connected, and then we will have an absolutely huge layout for the longhouse. And of course we can fill in the entire middle with our foundations as well. The first step that we'll take to turn this into the longhouse of Assassin's Creed Valhalla is making the walkways go around. We'll start right here at the main front gate that we have. We want to have 2 wooden pillars right on that corner, then leave a gap of 2 and another gap of 2. And here around the other side, we can do one more here and one more over there. Then we'll leave it at this because of course that's going to be a whole separate thing. We can add in some stairs right here to get on top of it, and we don't need any other stairs. What we can do as an extra little bit of detail is add a stone pillar underneath to kind of give these a little bit more of a feeling that they're actually being all the way supported. And what we actually want to do is also add these in right here along the front, just to give a little bit more details to those platforms. And if you're using the Viking Builder's cosmetic, this is a great place to add in a nice statue to make your entrance a little bit nicer. For these walkways though, we want to take out our railings. We want to make sure that we add them right over here and all the way around like that, so that the walkways are safe. And if the game allows it, you could place some slope walls next to your stairs to make those feel a little bit more complete as well. Then we want to actually take out our ramps, so stone ramps, and if you're lucky, we'll be able to get the right snap point for them. Sometimes it doesn't want to do that. What you do in that case is just temporarily you'll add a little wall. You can add a few ramps to it just like this, then remove the wall, and it should all be good to go. So we want to have these ramps just on the outside of the pillar, as well as 2 layers on the inside of the pillar. And this is the last roof or ramp that we want to have. So just on the left of this, where we have the nice entrance with the statues, is where it ends. And then it will go all the way here to the end of this. And then of course in the next layer, it's going to go one later and one later over there as well. Then here on this side, maybe you'll get lucky and it does in fact let you place it. Here we can bring it all the way up to here, so just next to where the addition is going to be. Bring those up of course, and then once again bring that to the corner, bring it to this corner, and then just fill in the rest just like that. And then for these, we of course want to use the corner pieces to fill them in quite nicely, like a perfect little ramped roof. And then if you're using the Viking Builder skins, this is going to be the stone roofs. That's why I've used stone, just to kind of demonstrate that. But even with vanilla skins, or without skins I should say, it will still look pretty nice. We want to have a railing here leading up into where the ramps go, just as a little bit of extra support. Just looks a little bit nicer that way. So we'll add them over here as well, just so that it looks like there's actually some support beams holding this all up. Then for now, we'll leave these sections open. We'll come back to that in a little bit. For these in-between sections of 4, we want to have a pillar right in the middle. So for both of these, and we can actually have some stairs in the entrances so that you can actually go up to them, of course. And again, if the landscape allows it, you can have some slope walls to the sides of those to actually make those look nicer and feel complete. Here in this corner, of course, we don't need it because it's like a straight corner, so it's not visible anyway. And yeah, then we have these pillars, but we still also want to add in the ramps, of course. So we'll take out the ramps again, see if we can get the right snap point, and we just want to make sure that it is 4 wide and going in by 3 in total. So 1 layer in front of the pillar and 2 layers behind it, just lining up with the other ones we've used so far. Taking out the railings as well as a little bit of a support beam, and we'll add them just like this. Same thing for over here on this section, of course, adding in those ramps again and making them up by 2, so there's 3 in total. There we go. And once again adding in some supports, and this already will give a little bit more shape to the walkways on the sides. Of course, once we do the buildings in between, the little bits that stick out, it will all make even more sense. So after this big side entrance, we're going to continue the same thing. So a pillar over here, and here on this side, of course, we want a pillar there, and a pillar here. So after every two, same as we did on the original entrance side, we want to keep that going. And then of course, underneath these, we can actually also add in a stone pillar just to complete the looks. Don't need to do that over there. We do want to take out our railings, add some over here, and of course here around the front as well. Then we want to take out our staircase again, have them over there, and of course all the way across over here, and wherever we can, if landscape allows it, add in some slope walls to the sides of those stairs to really fill them in. Then of course we want to take out the ramps again. For this section it's still going to be quite easy. Of course it's just going to fill in this section again by a 3x4 ramp, just as we did for the other two sections. And this is again going to be similar, of course, as the first one we did. So we want to bring these all the way along like so, bring it all the way up to the corner for the first layer, and then go in by one each of the following layers. If we get lucky, we can do it very easily. Of course, once again, only one to the entrance side of this last pillar, just like that, and then we'll bring it as close as possible to the other pieces and in our corner pieces, so that we have this side of the building completed with these walkways. And then of course all we need to do is add a few of these railings underneath as the supports, just like that, and we'll do that for all of them, at least the ones where we can add them in, just like so, to really get the feeling that this is all being nicely supported. So we're really already adding in a nice amount of details, and that makes at least for one side of this, the walkway complete. Now for these other little sections in between, there's two options. Well, actually we need to take a close look. So we have 4 here on the front and 2 here at the back. What I did in my original longhouse using those Viking Builders cosmetics is these 4 I turned into greenhouse glass. So all the walls, the roofs, etc., I all built out of greenhouse glass, so that I actually could use these to grow plants in very effectively. But of course that only works if you're going to skin them later, because otherwise they will still look like greenhouse glass, and that is not very nice to look at in ARK, unfortunately. So if you do not own the skins, you just want to use normal materials, and that's what we'll do for the tutorial. But you can swap these out with greenhouse walls and roofs if you want to get the cool greenhouse effect inside. We want to have 2 of these walls basically blocking off the walkway that we started on both sides of the building, and then of course we want to keep those stone walls going around just like this. There we go. And we'll quickly do that for all of these on this side of the building. So we'll add in these walls all the way around, just like that. And then one more over here. So yeah, there's 3 in total on each side. And they all start the same with adding in those stone walls at the bottom layer. Then we want to take out the wooden pillars. We want to add 3 over here, 3 over there, then another 3 here, another 3 there, and of course on these ends we want to do the same thing, just like that. We'll do that of course for all of these. So yeah, we'll have those pillars to kind of break up the different sections, but also to add as details, of course, especially on the stone layer. It really adds a nice amount of contrast with the rest of the build. So we'll do that for this last one as well, raising them up basically on all the corners. Make sure that they're facing the right direction, because they have a habit, of course, of picking different snaps and getting different orientations, and we want to make sure they're all lined up straight the same direction. So this is what we start with. Then we'll change them into wooden beams and make sure to go around the outside of where we have all the walls in place to again get the little beam to make a little bit more contrast for this section of the build. So we'll do that for all 3 of them. So there we go. One more over here. That will quickly add the beams all the way around. And then just as extra details underneath these ones on the front, we want to make sure that we have our stone pillars as well, so that they're not just floating, but they're actually properly being supported here. So we want to do that for all of the fronts, just like that. Now, of course, if you're using greenhouse walls, then you can just fill in this all the way up to the height of the pillars. But if you're not and you're using just wood, then we'll take out our wooden walls. We'll start filling in these sections all the way, so just all the way up, and we'll do that quickly for all 3 of these. So yeah, just add them in. Nothing too crazy about this yet. There we go, just adding them in all around. Then for the next section, we want to take out our windows, and we want to go around just like this. Of course, if you're using greenhouse glass, this is not needed, this is not an option. Just for the rest of the tiers, we can go around. And actually, if you're using the Viking Builders cosmetic, you just want to add these, skin them, and then change them to the variant with the rounded window, and you won't need to add actual windows inside of them. If you aren't using the skin, you probably want to add in some windows, open them up to at least get a little bit more depth in there, because of course you have the little window sticking out on the outside then. So yeah, we can go around and add all of those in. And then above this layer, we want to take out our normal walls again and just fill them in just like that. So that's the last remaining layer for this. We'll just quickly add in all of these walls, and you'll already see this is starting to feel a lot more built up, as well as the roofs nicely connected now. Speaking of roofs, it's time to add some roofs on these additions. We want to start out with normal thatched roofs, bring them up by 2, just like that, and then bring them down again on the other side, of course, to start filling this in. And we want to do that for all 3 of these to get started, just like this. And you can see we're using a nice variation of different roof types to really bring in, well, first of all, just variation, but also a little bit of contrast for each of these sections. So once we have these, we want to take out our triangle roofs, and we should be able to go around the entire shape of these side buildings and add in a nice roof. And once again, if you're using greenhouse glass, you can fill this all in with greenhouse roofs, of course. And we'll go around and do these for all the different sections. And yeah, already starting to get some shape into the sides of our building, of course, this way. So we'll bring them all the way around like this. And of course, the top layer can't be forgotten about. Then we want to take out our beams, and here on the top, we want to add in 2 beams. Just like this, going across all of these, and then add a little half beam at the end of it, making sure to get the right snap point, just so that it sticks out just that little bit to be a little bit more interesting as well. There we go. That's not completely done yet, because we want to make this a little bit more interesting. So we'll take out our little thatch ramps, and unfortunately, of course, they don't perfectly match, but it's still a nice little trim around the sides. And if you're using the Viking cosmetics, you can make this look like proper thatch. If you have overlapping available, you could do the last piece as well if you wanted to. For the rest, we'll just go all the way around, adding in this little bit of an overhang, or the little lip on the outside, just to make it even less flat. Even though the thatch roofs already kind of stick out a little bit, this just looks a bit nicer still. And especially using those Viking premium skins, they are very nice for Viking builds. So yeah, if you're planning to build this and more, might be worth looking into. There we go, all the way around, just like that for all of these. And yeah, it just adds a little bit of extra detail in and makes these buildings a little less flat on the outside. And you can already see that it's starting to take shape now around the walkways of this build. Okay, then one more addition that already starts to take shape for the main building right here on the corner. So 2 in from these other pillars. We want to add a pillar that is 5 high in total. So just like this, then leave a gap of 4, which is this pillar over here. Make that 5 high, another gap of 4, make it 5 high, another gap of 4, another gap of 4, and another gap of 4 with a 5 high pillar, just to bring a little bit more structure in here. This of course is going to be a 6 wide gap, then a 5 high pillar, another 4 gap, 5 high pillar, 5 high pillar, and then the final one on this corner, another 5 high pillar, which already will bring a little bit more structure in there for the actual main building, the actual longhouse itself. But of course, first of all, we'll need to build everything that we've built on this side the same way on the other side. And it is exactly the same, even though that this shape is different, the sections themselves are exactly the same thing. So I'm not going to show it all again. If you don't remember it exactly, you can of course watch the other side again, or just copy what you have already built and do it over here for these walkways on this side of the longhouse. And once you've done all that, it should look something like this, exactly the same on both sides of the building. Then it's time to add once more a little bit more structure to it. We start here at the actual main front of the building. Actually, shouldn't forget about adding in these now that I notice it. Make sure to have those at both sides of the building as well. We want to start, determining where the actual main entrance is going to be. And we're actually going to remove a few. So the first 2 layers is part of the walkway. So then these, we're going to take away 6 of them in total. So just like this, that should be 6 in total. We'll change the triangles to the quarter foundations. Have 2 over there and 2 over there. And then we can have 5 normal foundations right in the middle. And the reason for doing this is so that we can have a behemoth cellar door, change it to the barn door entrance, and snap it right there in the middle for those new foundations. And that means we have a nice big entrance to utilize here at the front of a building, so that still your biggest creatures can still fit inside without needing a behemoth gate, which is even taller. But this should be big enough even for like gigas and stuff like that. Then we can take out a pillar, and we actually want to go over here. So we want to, from this one, go in by 2 and then go in by 2 again. That's where we want to place down the first pillar, and we want to make this 6 high. So it's going to be 1 higher than the ones we have on the outside, and every 2 we want to place one of these pillars. So this is going to be for the interior structure, and we want to just start adding these all in everywhere along the sides. Well, not everywhere, they're not going to go all the way to the end, but at least for a good while. And it's nice to start adding these in to add a little bit more structure already, a little bit of the skeleton basically of the build in already. And we also want to keep them going here at the opening for the side entrances, so we're going to keep going just like this. And this right here, lining up with the other pillar, is going to be the last one. Then of course we can go to the opposite side. So from here we can go to this opposite side, again go in by 2, and we can add the same pillar, 6 high, every other 2, or every 2 actually. Yeah, we want to continue this the same way, basically to make sure that we have those proper supporting pillars for the main hallway in place everywhere, which kind of, functions as some kind of skeleton for the main long hall. And as you will see and realize, if you hadn't already, by the enormous shape of the foundation, yeah, this is a massive build and will easily hold a bunch of your stuff and tames inside. So yeah, we can bring all of these all the way up just until here, where we're all the way back at the front. So now it already starts to feel like a proper long haul, or at least the supporting pillars are in place. All right, we've already placed down the front entrance. Now we're at the back of the building and we'll start working on the entrance over here. We want to take out the stone walls, have 2 full foundations on the outside, and place 2 down like this. Leave a gap of 2, add 3 more walls here, and the same thing on the other side, 3 walls over there, which means we can add in a nice gate here. Sometimes I like to flip them around so they stick out a little bit more. Adds a little bit more depth to the outside. And then of course we can add in the gates themselves, which means that we have 2 nice entrances here on this side to get in and out of our building. Then we want to take out our wooden walls. Here in the middle we can just fill in this layer just like this. Here on the opposite side we can take out some windows. We can do 3 of them next to each other there, 3 of them next to each other over here, and we can actually also fill in the windows themselves. Unless you're using the Viking skin, then you don't really need them. I've used the narrow windows here and they look better without any windows inside of them. Then on top of this we want to take out full walls again, fill in the full wall layer here, and over there the same thing. So we have the first 3 layers up to where we basically have those roofs or the ramps around the walkways. Then we want to continue all the way up to, well, almost the top. First of all, we're going to add in some pillars right over here. There's 3, but we need 6 in total. So 6 right over there. And then we'll also have pillars right next to these gateways, which are also going to be 6 high in total. Same over here, bringing this all the way up. So 6. And we want to actually have a beam going out by 2 on the outside ones. Then we want to have 2 going in as well. And then a little half beam going in, because there's going to be a little entrance here in the middle, which we don't want to have a beam going across it. So then we can have full pillars again and just a nice beam going across the top. And if you want to make it even nicer, you take out some half beams as well and have them on the side just like that, just to finish that whole shape. But of course we'll definitely need some more walls in here too. So we want to take out some windows. We want to have a window right over here and a window right over there. Then we can start filling in this layer just like this. We want to basically fill in these first 2 layers all the way across from one side to the next. Now that we have these in place, we can then take out, of course, our doors, so we can actually fill in these windows. Again, unless you're using the Viking skin. I think I've used some of those curved ones here again. And then if we look over here, of course, we want to have the doorway right there. And we actually want to have 3 windows next to it. But you'll notice a little gap over there. So we'll also have those 3 windows here. I think, once again, that's the round ones I've used here. So no windows needed for the Vikings. But otherwise, of course, we can add in the windows and the door itself to create a little bit more interest. We then want to take out our quarter walls, fill in these little gaps over there so that there's no gaps left. Well, that leaves the layer in between. We want to fill this in, but not all the way to the end. We just want to go and fill this in with normal walls like this. And then, of course, at the end, we'll need our slope walls going up just like that to give a little bit of shape already to our building. Then, of course, we want to fill in this layer all the way across, and on top of these, actually, we want to have some more windows. For the Viking ones, I think I've used the narrow windows here, but otherwise, of course, you want to add in some actual windows to open them, to add some more depth. Then over here, we want to have 1 more slope wall at the end of this layer, but that's going to be the very last of it. And then this is just going to be a full wall and that's going to be a full wall. So that is already taking shape over here. But then the next layer, we're actually going to the shallow slope walls. So one layer just like that. Then we can take out our quarter wall, fill it in all the way across, and have another layer of these slope walls. So it's kind of going to round up towards the top of the build, and that means that we have this wall, so the back wall, pretty much entirely complete, except of course for the nice balcony that is going to be there right in the middle. And before we start on that balcony, we're going to work a little bit here on the inside so that we can actually easily get up and down to it. So we'll take out our pillars, and once again we're going to go from the corner, 2 in and 2 in again. And then we want to have a 6 high pillar over there. We'll leave another gap, and we'll have another pillar there, another gap of 2, another pillar going up, and then the final one right over here. So that's going to create a nice row of pillars there. It is also going to allow us to make a nice entry, which is going to be right here on the side, which is going to be back into the main hall. Basically, there's going to be a dividing wall here, and this means that you can get in here and to what is going to be the crafting room at the back. That's basically what I designed it to be. We want to then take out our wooden stairs. Those are going to be right here along this line, and we can of course make them go up by 6 in total, just like that. So basically the same height of all those pillars that we've got going on. And then for now at least, we just want to make sure that we have one full ceiling here and bring these ceilings all the way to the front of the building so that you can easily reach this wall and then have them going alongside it. For now, we can basically go all the way to the end. So this is just so that we can easily walk around it, and basically we can now get to the balcony that we need to add, which will make your work hopefully a little bit easier. And that means we can take out our triangles over here and we can add them all the way until we meet the pillar over there, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Then over here we can basically keep going until we have 3 of them on the outside like that. Same thing over here, we want to have 3 of them here along the outside, and then we can connect these up at the front, which should then also be 3 in total. And we can do that all the way around like this. And of course we want to have some railings around the edge here to make it a little bit safer. And if you want to make this a little bit nicer, you can of course take out some half pillars and add them on the corners just to make them stand out a little bit more. But we're not quite done yet. We want to take out our triangle roofs and basically add a layer underneath it to make this balcony feel a little bit bigger and better supported, because otherwise it kind of does feel like it's just floating here, and this feels a little bit more like proper supports. Then of course underneath we want to make sure that we fill in a second layer just like that, and we can even add in some extra additional supports underneath like that. And if you want to keep adding some more detail, of course this will cost you more structures. We can have some of the railings upside down along the bottom as well, and then here you want to make sure that we snap them to those to add them in just as an extra little bit of detail, which does help fill up this wall of course and make it look all a little bit nicer and a little bit more interesting. Alright, so for now we're going to focus on finishing this back room here, the crafting room at the back of the building. So we'll take out some stone walls and we'll start adding a layer all the way across here. So from the gate that we have over there, or the gateway that we have over there, all the way so it meets up until there. Then also here we want to make sure that it goes across. We can add these on the corners, leave the middle 2 open for now. Same thing over here, add those 2, leave the middle open, and then have this connect it up like so. Then we take out the quarter stone walls, have 4 of them just like this, and the same thing of course on the other side. Then we can take out our stone walls again, change it into a doorway, and that is going to provide us access to these side rooms, which you can turn into some nice bedrooms or something like that. We want to take out our full wooden walls and then add them on the layer above, just all the way up to the top of the outside pillars there. So just a plain wall for these side sections all the way up like that. And the same thing is going to go over here. We're just going to go and add in a wall all the way from one side to the next. So yeah, we just want to keep adding this in all the way across. And of course this is going to be slightly higher because there is already some pillars in place. We want to keep that going up until here because of course the shape is going up like that. Then here we can fill these in as well and have that in place, and then we can already have the slope walls on those corners like that because we know that is going to happen. For this wall, it's quite a big wall and quite a boring wall. Of course you can have some trophies on it, but you will also want to have a pillar here, so a gap of 2 for another pillar that will go up all this way. So that is going to be similar as the other one. And then right in the middle, so after 4 from each side, we're going to have another pillar going up to break up that big wall a little bit. Now we're getting quite far with this little room at the back, but we need a little bit more. First of all, we want to take out a beam and connect one side to the other side exactly where those ramps meet up with the wall, just like this. Then we can take out our pillars again and have them on every other section. So basically every gap is going to get some pillars going up, which will be visible on the outside, of course. So there we go. That is the start of that wall. And then for the rest of that wall, we can fill in this layer with normal walls, just like so. Same thing, of course, over here on the other side. We can keep that going for the sides and the top layer over here, all the way around like that. Same thing over on the other side, of course. So fill in those first, and then we can take out windows again. We can have a window in here, of course. Those will be the narrow windows for the Viking skins. Same over here, some more windows. And we're going to have 4 windows along that side. And the same goes over on the other side, of course, adding those windows in. Those are going to be the round windows for the Vikings. And if you're not using it, of course, we can add in windows so that you can open them up and add that little bit of extra depth to the building. There we go. That does mean that we have most of this room now filled in. We actually, of course, want to fill it in a little bit more. So take out our normal walls again. Start filling in the top 3 layers between these pillars. Just to kind of emulate that is a separate hallway. And then underneath it, we're going to add our slope walls just like this, to get a little bit of a nicer shape going on there. Then we want to take out our railings and we can add them underneath to really get a nice shape there. Make some nice arches, which is basically going to be from this crafting hall over here into this hallway, which leads back into the main longhouse or the main hall. Then over here on this side, of course, we also can add our railings alongside the staircase going up all the way like that. And of course at the end we might want to have a half thin pillar just to add a little bit more detail there. Then on top of here we can have a little bit more shape to the build. So first of all, we can add a little bit of a railing around the gap where the stairs come up, and then of course we can have a half pillar on this corner and a half pillar on that corner as well. And then we can start filling in this layer, at least for the part that we've now completely built up. So we can go around, start filling in these ceilings for the next layer, making sure we line it up with that slope wall over there from one side to the next. And that's going to be basically, this is where you could have more of your living quarters or more crafting, of course, depending on what you need. But yeah, you do have already a pretty big space available up here, of course, and nice access to a balcony where you can easily park some of your flyers as well. So before we work on the rest of the longhouse, let's finish up this area and make some different rooms here. First of all, what we want to do is get a wooden gateway in here, which is going to enter into the main hall, and of course all the walkways that we have up there. You can, if you want, also actually add in a door there if you want to be able to close the different rooms. Then we want to take out some pillars, and we want to have them right over here, so one gap to the actual gate. And for now, this section is only going to be 3 high, so just like that. And then we can have beams going across, except for where the gate is, of course, all the way from one side to the next. And then we can basically just fill in the remainder of this wall. So for here, we'll just continue these walls going up like this. And of course, the slope walls will also continue going up like that. Just like so, because we can see there's still 3 slope walls going up. So the other section, we don't need to worry about it because there's going to be something different going on over there. But this is a very big room, and probably is more practical to divide it up, just so that you have a little bit more options to work with. So what we want to do is that we want to have 1, 2, 3, and 4 before we do anything. And then we want to go over here, start adding the beam, leave the middle 2 open, but have a beam going across, then some thin or some half beams there so that we can have a door in the middle. So you can basically have this as big room, and you have a big room over here. So maybe more crafting in here, and then some bedrooms up there for you and your tribe mates. We can have the pillars going up here, and of course a nice beam across with some of these half beams going off to the side, just as we did for that other doorway. And then of course we can have the full pillars again going up over here, 3 of them up there, 3 of them going up over there as well. So yeah, you probably do want to have a door in here just to separate it and being able to close it off to the outside. And of course that means that we'll need some quarter walls on both sides to fill in those gaps, and the rest of the wall we can just basically fill in. But we will have to follow, of course, the shape of the rest of the building. So for now, we'll just fill it in up until the pillars. And of course, we're going to have to be aware that the slope walls are going to go up just like we have on that other side. So we want to follow that shape up. So basically, we'll have our slope walls going up like this all the way across. And then, of course, in this layer, it's where they turn into the shallow slope ones, which also means that we can have our quarter walls in between and then have another shallow slope wall on top of that to again curve off the rest of the roof. Should be the exact same as the one on the top or the front of the building, or actually it's the back of the building. But then we have one room here, which could be a nice big bedroom, one big hall here that you could still use for maybe some crafting if you end up not having enough space down here. And yeah, you have a decent amount of space available and all ready to go until we add on the roofs everywhere. But that does mean that we have the crafting room and the back of the building pretty much complete, and it's time to start focusing on the rest of the longhouse. And the first thing that we'll do is take out our stone walls and actually start filling in the borders of the long halls. So we want to start over here, basically leaving that walkway of 2 wide on the outside and filling in between the pillars. Then over here, we can actually take out those walls and bring them all the way alongside these entrances. So this is the big entrance to the side, but we also want to have some walls going on over here. So 2 to the inside of this part. We want to have 2 walls on both sides, as well as the gateway and the gate right in the middle of it, which is going to be, of course, our main side entrance to get into the hall. And yeah, we have a little bit of like an overhang that is nice and safely roofed. And these little docks are basically where you could park some of your tames. Then we want to continue here on the other side, continue with these walls. Of course, for these sections, it's slightly different. So for now, we'll only have the 2 walls at the end, and we'll just continue going around. So we'll leave the middle sections open wherever we have one of those additions, and you can just kind of follow all the way around. As well as over here, we'll leave that little gap open for now. Same thing on the other side, and we can just continue filling in these walls around. Again, leave a gap of 2, continue filling in these middle parts, a gap of 2, and then fill in this part as well. And of course, over here for this addition on the side, we can just go all the way around completely to fill in our stone walls. There we go. Just a nice addition basically to the main hall. And then over here we can connect it back up to the part that we already fixed. We want to take out our quarter walls, go to these sections, and of course add 4 of them in just like this, so that we can have a nice door in the middle of all of them to access them. So we're just going to go around adding them in everywhere. There we go. That should be it. We'll have our doorways. Add them in just like so for all of these. Awesome. And then of course we can add in the doors themselves, so you can close off those rooms. And we already of course made the entrances here, but we also want to make sure that we add in the doors for these 2 all the way at the back, so that we don't forget about them. And that means that we have the walls intact for our long hall, so we can really already see it taking shape a little bit more. Then we want to take out our windows. We want to add a layer of windows right over here, and that's for all of these sections. That's going to be the same thing, so we'll focus on those sections first, adding in a nice layer of these wooden window walls right above them. For the Viking skins, you don't need actual windows in them, of course. As I've said many times before, we'll change them to the archers and kind of don't need anything in them. But otherwise, of course, we are going to add them in if you're not using a skin. So we'll just go all the way around, adding those window walls. And then again, if you're not using the Viking skin, you probably want to add in the windows themselves, and of course, open them up, so that you have a little bit more of like depth in the build, because of course that adds a little bit of an extra layer going on. So we'll just go around and at least fill them all in. There we go. That's those sections almost done. Then we want to take out our full walls and place them above the windows that we've just made. And we also want to make a shape like this. And once again, we're going to repeat that, of course, for all of these sections, because it's basically going to be the same thing for all of them. So we want to just start by placing down those shapes everywhere, just to make it a little bit easier on yourself, right? To do the same repetitive tasks over and over again, rather than having to do them separately and kind of forgetting what you're supposed to be building. I think it always is a little bit easier doing it like this. So we'll just go and get those shapes ready for all of these sections, and this will also really help get the longhouse in shape quite quickly this way. So yeah, we just want to make sure that we do it for this last one as well. And then once again, we're going to have some windows for the Viking skins. These will be the narrow windows, which I think is the default one. And we can just add them in to all those sections, just like this. Oh, nope. There we go, all the way around. Then what we want to do is take out our pillars for these top parts. We want to have 2 pillars coming down like this. We've done this for the crafting hall bit already, of course. It's the same principle. We'll bring these 2 pillars down for all of these sections, which is of course going to be quite visible from the outside. So it's a nice little bit of extra detail for our build. So we want to add them all in just like this, going around everywhere. Then of course we want to change into the beam, add that below those pillars so that they are actually being supported and just don't stop randomly ending in nothing. So we'll do that all the way around, of course, adding these details in for all of these sections just like that. And then of course, if you're not using the Viking skins, once again we can add in actual proper windows just as additional details. So we'll want to go all the way around, add them all in. There we go, just like that. And that means that we already have quite a few of these wall sections up and ready to go for our main building, which already looks a lot nicer. Then we can take out our full wooden walls, of course, and we can just start filling in these sections in between. We don't need anything fancy going on there because, of course, on the outside we already have the whole additional building. So we just want to bring up these walls and basically fill them in, trying not to misplace anything with all the other snap points. Of course, this section in the middle we can leave open because that is an additional building. Same over here, we'll leave that open for now. So just where we have those additions, we can fill in the wall all the way to the top of the outside pillars. And that already brings the main shape of the long hall in play. There we go. It feels a little bit more like a building every step we take now. All right, so back here at the front entrance, we want, of course, add in these little quarter pieces here so that we have that completely taken care of. And then we also want to place down a beam right here and right there. We'll raise those up in a little bit. What we want to do then is add in some more windows. We want to have 3 windows over here and the same 3 windows over there. Again, no windows needed, or not windows in here needed if you're using the Viking skins, but otherwise we can of course add them in right like this. And then we at least want to fill up this wall until where it meets with the ramps out there. So just like so. And then before we start continuing the front wall, it's actually easier to go all the way back here, all the way back up there, and add in the walkways around. So it's easier to move around, especially if you're building this in survival. So from here, we want to add 4 in total, or go out by 4 in total. So this platform will be a little bit bigger here. And we, of course, want to line that up with these sloped wall pieces that we already have. So this is kind of the whole thing that we want to fill in to get started with, which should be a nice big platform overlooking the main hall as well, because we're not going to add like a full extra layer here. You could if you really wanted to, but to make it feel more like a proper long hall, I really want to keep this open, which also allows your bigger tames to easily fit inside. Then here along the side, basically, we want to make sure that we fill in 2 layers. So 1 layer on each side of the pillars, basically, that we have supporting this walkway. So we can go all the way across from that back wall that we had all the way up to where the front wall is going to be. So we'll just slowly but surely bring this out all the way to the front. Now remember, there's going to be 2 more after the last pillar you've placed. That's where we can bring it across to the other side until it meets up with the pillar. And then once again, remember, one on each side of the pillar, and we can bring it all the way back to the beginning, just like this. And that means we'll get our walkways in place, which hopefully will be quite helpful with the building process of the rest of the longhouse, especially for survival players, because well, there's a little bit more ways to walk around, and hopefully a little bit easier even if you're using a flyer to land on, etc. Now that we've got those in place, that also means that we can take this pillar and raise it all the way up until it meets with that walkway. So we want to raise up this pillar all the way until it meets up with that. Then here on the front in the middle, we want to make sure that we add in the gateway and the gate, because there's going to be another balcony there, but it's nice to have a nice gateway so that some of your flyers can still fly in and out of the longhouse itself, of course, to drop off stuff or whatever you need. Then for the walls on the front here, we're going to keep it relatively simple. We want to fill it up just like this. Same thing, of course, on the other side of the entrance, just like so. And of course, this means that we can add in some of our slope walls. We'll bring it onto the hotbar. We can have some slope walls going up this way. And of course, we want to go with this a little bit further, because we want to have 4 of these slope walls in total. And then we can keep filling in the rest of the walls. We're not adding in another window here, so we can keep it just like that. And we can add a layer going across like this, just above the gateway. Then if we take a look on the inside here, we can of course fill this in with quarter walls so that we do not have a gap between the gate and the walls themselves. So we want to bring this all the way up until we meet the rest of the walls. And then we can change into a beam, and we can actually add a beam going across here so that we have a little bit more support going on here on the front. We could just leave it like this, especially if you're using the Viking cosmetics. There's plenty of ways to decorate these walls, but if you want to have a little bit of extra details, you could also add like 2 windows next to the entrance here. And of course, if you're not using the Viking skin, we can add in the windows there as well for an extra little bit of depth. On top of here, we want to use the shallow slope walls to fill in that gap. And of course, using some quarter walls to bridge that gap. And then finally have another layer of those shallow slope walls to finish up the shape, which has a little bit of a curve to it, of course, matches the rest of the building. And that is basically the front wall and the front entrance ready to be used. Well, then there's of course a few more walls left to do, and one of them being right over here where the side entrance is going to be. So we want to take out our pillars, and right over here we want to make sure that we go up by 6 in total right next to the gateway. That is the entrance here. Then on the side, we want to go up by 4 in total. We'll do the same thing here on the front. Go up by 4 in total. And then there, of course, another pillar of 4 in total. For the ones at the very front here, we can actually add a stone pillar underneath, of course, to finish that whole look. And then, of course, we still need to make an entrance here. So we want to take out our stairs. We will add 2 right here. And we'll actually make it a little bit bigger by adding some quarters right next to it. And then we want to make it a little bit more interesting here. So what we want to do temporarily, we're going to place some quarter ceilings on those corners. Then we'll have some full ceilings right next to it. We can take out our stone pillars, and at least on the front you should definitely be able to add them in here. I'm not sure if it will let you place them here, probably not on official settings, so I'm not going to. But then we can take out those quarter ceilings and we'll just have these pieces left. We want to take out our walls then, change them to the full walls, of course, and make sure we add them underneath here so that we can have this whole place done. If you don't want to do all this, you can also just use foundations, but I kind of want to make sure that they stand out a little bit, and these will be perfect places to add some nice statues on, especially if you're using the Viking cosmetic, just to make it a little bit nicer and a little bit more fancy. We want to then take out our wooden walls, and here at the side we just want to fill these in all the way to the top of those pillars that we've added. So for both sides, just make them go all the way up to the top of the pillars. So 4 high in total, 3 wooden wall layers. As for the rest of this wall, we want to add some windows right next to the entrances here. Again, for the Viking skin, you don't need windows in there, but otherwise we can. And I mean, I haven't done that before, but of course the reason is so that you have a little bit of the 3D effect if you open them up. For the rest of this wall, we just want to use full walls and fill them up to the same height as the ones on the side. So just like that, we want to make sure they all line up, and then in the middle we can have these 4 and then these 2 right there. We can take our slope walls then and then add in the shape for this entrance just like this, and you have a lot of space here to add some trophies, or especially if you're using the Viking cosmetic, there's a bunch of decorative pieces that you can utilize to decorate this wall. Now, we won't start the full roof just yet, but we are going to start everything in front of the layer that we've just added so that we can basically finish all the detailing on this entrance. So first of all, we want to follow this shape and bring that out until we have it sticking out by 1 on the front here. So we want to just go ahead, do that for this entire thing, change to the wooden ramps and add a layer here on the edge, as well as a nice bit of overhang going on just like that. And then the real reason we did this is so that we can now take our slope walls and add in that little bit of detail coming from the pillars and following the shape of the roof, which is basically just a little bit of an extra addition here in the front. So there's some supports, there's some room in front of the entrance just like this, and that means that we've got this side entrance covered, and there's only one of the side buildings left before we can start on the main roof, and that's of course this one on this side. And to get this started, of course, we will also be taking out our pillars. First of all, we want to start on this corner. We want to add 5 pillars in total. We'll do the same for this corner over here. So 5 pillars in total, and then after a gap of 2, we'll add another 5 right there in the middle. So we'll do that for both of these. And then here on the end at the curved bit, we want to add 4 pillars going up in total, so a little bit shorter. Then we want to take out our stone pillars. We want to actually snap that underneath, just all of the ones that are visible. Of course, that one is not necessary. We'll do the same thing over here. Get those supports ready. We want to take out our windows. We want to have windows just around this edge. And once again, I've said this many times, but I'm going to keep reminding you, you won't actually need to fill in the windows if you're using the Viking skin, or at least not for the looks. But of course, otherwise you can, just to add a little bit of that 3D effect, as well as being able to close off your base, I suppose, if we really care about that. And yeah, then we can fill in the rest of them with full walls. So this part at least is going to just be full walls going up until the top of the pillar. Same thing over here. Then of course for this section it's going to be one shorter, so it's only going to be up to the height of the pillars here at this end. So there's a slight height difference for those sections, which is going to make the roof a little bit more interesting, but we'll see that once we start on the actual roof. So there we go. That is the shape of this building. Then we're going to start with part of the roof. We're going to have some triangles going around this section, which once again is going to be separate of the main part. It's just going to line up like this, and we can keep those triangles going all the way round once again, and then a final layer right over here, which shouldn't interact with going past this line of the building. And then just for a little bit of added detail, we want to have some ramps around the outside. Unfortunately, of course, it doesn't match the same thatch look in Vanilla Ark, but if you use the Viking skins, it does actually have a nice thatch roof variant of this, which makes it blend in perfectly and look really nice. Unfortunately, of course, we don't have triangle ramp pieces, we only have corner pieces, so we can't quite go around these just yet. Maybe one day they will add them in though. And then around these edges, we actually want to take out our slope walls and add in a layer just like this, following the shape of the roof all the way around. And that will already make sure that it is complete until we start filling in the entire roof for the entire longhouse, which is the next step. So now it's finally time to start the actual roof, and we will start with actual roof pieces right around the edge here. And of course, we're going to have it stick out by one on the front. So we can just continue going along the sides here. And then when we meet up with this corner, we of course want to add them around here as well, making them also stick out over there. And we can actually add in our corner piece over here as well. Then we'll continue on this side. So we have this one over here and these ones over around here, of course, filling in the corner. For now, we're only doing the bottom layer of the roof because, of course, it's a very big roof. So we want to add in as much detail as we can to keep this interesting and not just one big roof without anything going on. So we want to go all the way around, filling that all in. Then for the next layer, we'll take out some ramps and have them underneath here. We'll just bring them in like this. And then over here, we want to make sure that we add in our ramp corners just like that, so that we don't have to overlap with these roof pieces. And after that, we can just continue along the side of the building. Here again, we'll have those corner pieces to avoid any clipping or collisions, and just follow along. Here we have an actual corner, so we can just add in that one and continue going around here, adding that detail in for this side of the building too, which we can then of course continue on the other side of this, have a nice corner here, and then keep it going all the way along. Once again, using those corner pieces to avoid having to clip through anything and follow the edge all the way to the end. So that is the start of the roof, at least on this side of the building. Quite smooth without any issues. Then we'll go back to the other side of the building, switch back to our normal roofs, and also add in the layer over here, which should be quite similar, a little bit different of course because of the way everything, or the addition works over here, but the idea is the same. They're going to meet up over here. We then want to take out our corner piece and make them line up perfectly. So we will do the same thing over here, of course. Make sure that we have these both line up, get the corner in place, and then we can keep it going all the way along the side of the building without any issues, all the way to the front, and making sure that it sticks out by one, of course, on both ends. Then we can go and change to our ramps again, go along the side, the same principle. Whenever we come across one of these additions, add in the corners so that we don't have to overlap anything with each other. And then over here, we also want to be careful, of course, because we have this roof which we kind of want to finish first. So we can just have this roof going in like this. We should then be able to take out our ramps along the side, which should just go against the building. We also want to have a slope wall over here to fill in that little gap. And then we can continue this ramp just by one. And after that, we want to have a ramp corner so that it goes in, but it doesn't cause any issues. And you still be able to do this even on official settings without needing to overlap anything. Then here on the other side, of course, it's going to be the same thing. So first of all, bringing this in, bringing in our slope wall right over there. And then we can add in our ramp pieces. So first of all, our ramps around there, ramps around here, then our corner piece to make sure nothing overlaps. And we can keep the ramps going over here just as normal with the corners to avoid any issues. And just bring it along all the way until we're back at the front of the building. So yeah, we'll keep this all up until we're all the way at the front. And then we also have a nice smooth start of the roof on this side, and even integrated this side entrance as well. Alright, so for the next step, we're actually going to already add in some details to the roof before we continue. So wherever we have these two windows, we want to have two windows just like that above it. So we're going to add them for all of these sections, and they're going to be nice little details in our roof. So one more right over here at the back, which is also nice for whatever room you're building there. And of course, we're not just doing that for one side, but we're doing the same thing on the opposite side as well. And this will just help break up that very big roof that we're going to have to build. And yeah, make it a little bit more interesting and not as massive without any interruptions. So we want to add these windows first, then we want to take out our slope walls and basically create little roof shapes for all of these, and they will break up, of course, the main roof, add little additions, as well as, of course, give you some nice spots to enjoy the views whilst walking around all the walkways or in these rooms up here. So definitely well worth it, I would say. So we'll just go around, add in these slope walls, try not to misclick too much, and just go all the way, all the way around, adding these shapes in so that we can continue the work on our roof, of course. Then it's time to take out our roofs. First, only on the outside, we want to just add in these shapes so that we have those in place already. And you can already see what effect that will have on the entire roof. It will be a nice interruption and points of interest along this side of this massive roof. Look at that. That's already quite nice. Of course, going to do the exact same here on the opposite side, filling in these roof pieces all up and down these different sides. Just like that. And just the last one right over here, the same. Alright, so we now start with the next session of roof building, and we're gonna actually do all the normal roof parts. So everything except those last two where we have the little curve coming in. And we of course want to start this with adding in these little additions that we have, or making these link up with each other. And it shouldn't be too difficult, of course. Whenever you come across them, just want to make sure that we add these corners in all nicely, and we can just keep them going on like this. So we'll just fill in those sections and then fill in the corners to keep that roof nicely aligned. And then the final layer of the roof is actually quite straightforward. We can actually bring that one all the way across just to make our lives a little bit easier, because there's nothing that we need to connect to this layer. So this should just be able to get all the way across from one side to the other without any issues at all. So we can just start filling that in. And then of course for the other layers, we will need to make them match up with their other counterparts, but nothing too tricky there. What I usually prefer to do is what I'm doing right now, is just preparing all of these with our normal roof pieces and just making them line up. Make sure to have the entrance here. Don't forget that We want to make sure that we line that up as well. So that's going to get our corner pieces now to make them match. And then all of these, of course, we can make sure that they're all neatly lined up and ready to be connected. This just saves you having to switch back and forth different building pieces, because now we can just go along and add in all the corners that are needed to make our roof look all nice. And of course, here we have the main entrance that we shouldn't forget. Well, not the main entrance, but like the big side entrance. And then we can do the rest of these little things. There we go. Follow all the way along all the sides. And there we go. For one side at least, we have this part of the roof nicely done, and you can see how much these little additions have helped to make the roof a little bit more interesting and break up the otherwise very big surface that would be very boring to look at. We are going to add some more details to the roofs, but first, of course, we're going to have to do the same thing here on the other side. So once again, we want to take out our roofs. We can at least take this top layer, of course, all the way across, just as we did on the other side, just to make things a little bit easier, because you don't have to think about anything with this layer. It's very straightforward. So we just want to take that from one side all the way to the other side, just like this, and then we can get ready all the pieces to make them line up, so that we only need to add in the corner pieces afterwards, which is again my preferred way of doing this, because I feel like it's just a little bit faster, even in survival, because then you only need to carry one piece before you have to go around and filling in the other separate pieces. Again, there is of course the addition here that we need to also keep in mind. So what we're going to do is make sure that we get these corners lined up as well. Should all line up quite nicely without too many issues though, so shouldn't be too difficult, but just keep in mind, don't forget about it. You should obviously come across it by yourself whenever we're working on this, and we can just keep filling in the other sections as needed to prepare ourselves for adding in all the corners to make the roof line up everywhere. That one we don't need. There we go. Then we can have our corner pieces to also make sure that this side of the building has this part of the roof looking all nice and filled in. There we go. Connecting this important part, of course, the side roof. And we'll keep these going. Oh, got one here. Continue filling all these in. There we go. Nice additions here. Everything is lining up nicely. Adding in the last few corners. And there we go. So we also have all the roofs complete on this side of the build. Alright, before we move on to the other section of the roof, we of course want to add in some details along the way. What we want to do is take out our beams, add them on top of all of these sections, just to have something stand out over there. So we want to do that for this, but also for these entrances that we have going on the side. And besides that, we even want to add some more details to this. Now, if you're going to use the Viking cosmetic, what you want to do first is get a large deco box and find the absolute last point. So where it starts to, you know, kick you off to the side, you want to just move it up so that you're on top of here. Have it facing forward. And this one you want to change into a statue, because you can get some really cool end pieces with some of the variations. And then afterwards, you want to add in this slope wall on top of it. If you're not using the Viking cosmetics, of course, we're only going to have these pieces. And that's going to be the same thing for all of these. So the only thing that I would, be aware of is making them face the same way, just because then it will look a little bit nicer. than if they're all facing different ways. We're not doing that on these thatch roofs that we had below, just on the new ones that we have on the main roof here. So we want to use these. If you're not going to use the Viking skins, you could also choose to just use the shallow roofs or the shallow walls instead, because, you know, you don't have anything at the end here. You could, of course, always add a pillar instead, but yeah, it's never going to be as nice as those custom statues because they are really perfect for this. But we do want to at least add in this little bit of extra detail just to make these roofs stand out a little bit more. Of course, we're going to do the same thing here on the other side. So first of all, we want to make sure that we add in all our beams on top of this. There we go. All the way across for all of these roof pieces, of course. And then same thing as the other side, we're going to add in these slope walls. If you're using the Viking cosmetics, of course, first add in the deco boxes to get those details in there, because that will just be a lot easier that way. And there we go. We have all the end pieces in place, just adding a little bit of extra details all the way around. All right, time for the next section of the roof. We want to start here at the front, take out our ramps, and of course add in these two. We want to add in the first 4 layers of the ramps, just like this. Then we'll add 4 more ramps over here, and then 4 more just like so. So that is the shape we want to follow. We'll do the exact same thing, of course, on the opposite side. So first of all, it's going to be 4 all the way through, then 4 only at the bottom, and then of course 4 more all the way through again, just like this. And that means that we'll have a little addition right over here, just to add a little bit of detail to the place. We want to take out our half pillars, add them every piece, basically every one gap, and the same thing here on the other side, adding them in like this. And of course, if you want to make this look a little bit nicer, you will also add in beams going across the bottom here, just because it connects a little bit better that way. And then what we want to do is have some railings going in between them, just like that. Then here on the side, we want to take out our shallow slope walls. We want to add in a shape like this on both ends of this. So we want to make sure that we add in those shapes on both ends of that roof piece. And then we can take out the thatch ramps and add some ramps right around the middle of this entire thing, just like that. And of course, if you want to have a little bit of an overhang around the outside, we can add in another layer around the edges, just to make this look a little bit cooler. And basically this is supposed to be like one of those areas where the smoke can escape from the longhouse through these gaps along the sides. And it's also just a nice way to once again break up this roof that is very big, and yeah, make it a little bit nicer. So we want to do that. Then what we want to do is we take out our beams again. We want, of course, have beams going across the top here from start to finish, but we also want to have the beams going across this part of the roof, as well as this part right here in the front. And here in the front is again where you would place the big deco box if you're using the Viking structures, and otherwise you would at least add in the slope wall. For this smaller section, I would always add in the shallow slope walls instead, just to make it a little bit smaller and stand out a little bit more. But you can already see that this is quite a nice little detail there to break up the top of the roof. Alright, now we'll start working on the complete opposite side of the building, all the way here at the back. And we want to start with 3 layers of ramps over here. So 3 layers of ramps. Of course, do the same thing on both sides. Then we'll have a gap of 2, just like this. There we go. And then another 3, just as we started with. So another section of 3 roofs, filling it in completely, just like that. And of course means that we'll have something nice over here again. So first of all, we'll take our little half pillars, add them in right over here. Same thing over there. Then of course we'll take out our beams, and we'll have some along the sides as well as the tops here of these ramps. There we go. We can take out our shallow sloped walls, add them in along these sides to get the shape for the roof in place again. There we go. And along the sides, of course, is going to be some more of these railings. It's basically very similar to the one that we built over there, just a little bit smaller. Then on the top, of course, we can take out our ramps again, fill in the tops of this. And again, if you want a little bit of an overhang around the outside, you want to take out our quarter ramps as well and just go around it just like this. And the same thing over here on the other side, completely going around as well. And then on top, of course, we want to add in our beams again, and then some half beams at the end to make it all fit. Again, use the big deco box over here at the end if you're using the Viking skins. Then we'll have our slope walls and the shallow slope walls at the end of these pieces to add in a little bit more details there. And then already we have a really nice start to the roof of the longhouse, as you can see, and there's one piece left which is going to be right there in the middle. Basically, the next layer we're going to build is a kind of an aviary where you can park your flyers quite easily on the very top layer of the longhouse. But to get that started, we just want to make sure that we fill in this entire section with some ceiling. So basically, this section we're just going to completely fill in with ceilings from left to right, just so that we have the bases in place to build up that last little bit of the build. And it's a really nice place to park like your pterodons, RGs, tapajaras. Those will all really easily fit inside. So snow owls, things of that size should easily fit in here and fly in and out. And that's also why we kept this open, because it's going to run all the way up to here. Before we get started on building up this final layer, we're actually going to do some more work on the inside here, connecting the different layers up to each other. So we'll take out our quarter ceilings and we'll add 4 of them right in here so that we have some nice new snap points. And then what we want to do is get a staircase coming down from there onto the walkways, and we can actually add that going both ways, so you can quite easily get up to that final level from both sides without any issues at all. And then of course at the end we want to have some little half pillars just as little details. We probably also want to have those along these places as well as right over here, just to kind of mark the end for the stairs. And then we want to have some railings there, and of course railings along the side of the whole staircase going up, and also on the other side, of course, going back down, just so that it is actually safe to walk on. And then before we do the final layer, we can now actually do all the interior as well, because we know where the stairs are. They're not going to interfere with us, and it means we can add in all of the railings all the way round here, so you don't keep falling down. And what you probably at least want to do in the corners is add in the little half thin pillars, just as a little added detail. But yeah, we can now finally go around, finish off this layer before we go do the final layer on the roof, because otherwise we are very likely to forget about it. So we'll just fill all of this in, go around over here, and of course over here as well we can add some to these corners. Same thing over here, we can bring these out all the way along the side until we meet up where we started over here at the stairs. Over here, these, of course, you probably also want to add in something. You could just go with some railings along the top. You probably don't want to have the railings all the way at the bottom because it will stick out a little bit. So probably the easiest way is just to have some sloped walls at least going on like this. And then if it allows you to do it, we can have some railings just like that to kind of close off that gap. And then over here, probably the easiest way is to just close this off. You could, of course, make this a frontier window if you want to keep a window for some reason. But it's only a little bit, so might as well keep that closed. There is some other details that we want to add on the inside, but we'll do that at the end. Now, before we do that final layer, there's one more layer we need to do right here at the front as well, so that we have this walkway completed. And that is a little balcony, of course. It goes just off to the side here, and then it will just be a tiny balcony like this with some nice railings around it, of course, to keep you safe. Make sure you don't fall off. Some little half thin pillars on the edges, and then to add a little bit more detail in, some shallow slope walls over there, and we can also add them here in the middle for some extra supports. And then what I personally like to do is have a little bit more of these railings going around, and then at the end we can get them going into the building like that, just to have a little bit more supports for that balcony. So it's a smaller version of the one that we have on the opposite side, and that finishes this whole layer. We have the staircase in place now, which also makes it a lot easier to get up here in survival instead of having to fly up and down all the time. Then it's time to take out our full pillars, and here on the top we want to have a pillar that is 3 high and 3 high over here as well. And then every other two, or every two actually, we want a pillar that is 3 high, which is going to be the start of this final layer, which is going to give us kind of an aviary, a nice parking spot for all of your flyers that will fit up here. So of course here on the other side we'll do the same thing with these pillars to kind of build up the skeleton for this final layer, which should give us plenty of space for some of our flying friends, as if you didn't have enough space in this base yet. Here along the side, we actually want to keep it quite simple. We'll take out our quarter walls, and we'll start off by adding a layer of the quarter walls from one side to the other. So yeah, we just kind of want to follow all the way along, just creating that first layer around here from one end to the other, trying not to misplace anything. There we go, I did misplace anything, I think. Yep. We just want to keep it going all the way. There we go. And of course the other side exactly the same, just have a layer at the bottom, continuing all the way across, because as I said, this is going to be used for parking a bunch of your flyers. There's actually a decent amount of space up here, so you can definitely have a decent amount of flyers here, maybe even do some breeding of your flyers quite safely up here without having to have them in the hallway where you probably would have all of your other teams already. Then we'll take out our full walls, and at the top of this we want to add in a layer of walls just from one side to the next. Pretty much the same thing, although it's a lot easier of course to do this with the full walls. And again we'll repeat the same thing on the opposite side, just mirroring what we do. There we go, bringing it all the way over from start to finish. And whilst we're at it, we might as well also add in our walls all the way at the bottom here. And we can also follow this up by having the walls go up at the sides. This is going to be where we will have a way to enter for your flyers. Then we'll take out those sloped walls, and we want to create these arches on the side just to get some nice details in there. And yeah, just keep going around like this for a nice shape. Of course, the other side is going to be exactly the same, so we'll just add in all of these slope walls all around the edges. There we go. And then to finish these sides, we want to take out our railings, and we'll add a railing basically on top of these quarter walls that we've already placed down, making sure we get the right snap points and we don't overshoot them. There we go. Just all the way from one side to the next. Because once again, we want to make sure that we do have some of the views, but we also want to have some nice details on the sides because this will be quite visible. And then we also want to have the railings coming down from these slope walls, just as extra details along the side. Just like that. There we go. So yeah, that will give some nice intricate details of the sides of these parts. So what we want to do then is basically bring this all the way along the side. So we want to add these in for all of the segments on the other side as well, of course. Trying not to get the wrong snap points too often. There we go. And then of course along the slope walls as well. There we go. Had to fix up that mistake. Yeah, just along the slope walls for the extra little bit of detail. So we have that nice decoration on both sides of the building. Looking quite nice indeed. And then of course it's time for this side over here. We actually want to raise this up a little bit. So we'll have a layer of quarter ceilings going on just like this. And then we want to have some pillars. So first of all, some full pillars along the sides, half pillar along the bottom, and then beams connecting these up with each other. So that's the entryway you can fly through to get your flies inside here. And then on top, of course, we're going to use the shallow roof pieces. So we want to connect them, of course, with our quarter walls before finishing the shape of the roof again with more of our shallow pieces. So to add a little bit more detail in here, what we can do is find the snap point of one of these beams, go through them until we get this one, and then we want to do that for both sides to get a little bit more shape to this entry point. Then we have this side completed. Of course, we also need to do something here on the other side of the building. We first want to start out by adding these shallow walls in there, and then of course we can continue that by having some of our quarter walls to the sides. And then of course another shallow wall underneath it to finish the shape, follow the shape of the rest of the building. And of course we want to have the half railings on both sides so that we can have this nicely closed up and you cannot fall down, although I don't think it would fit through, but it just looks a little bit cleaner if we have it like this. Then of course we'll take out our full walls, and along the side here we have two more going up just like this. Then we can take out our quarter walls again, have a layer down the bottom here, have our shallow slope walls here again, a layer of quarter walls connecting them, and then to end the shape we have our shallow walls again. We want to take out our pillars. We want to start with the full pillars, some half pillars below, and then the beams connecting up one side to the other, just like this. And of course, for the extra details, take out the railings, flip them around, and add in these just like that for a little bit of extra shape to this whole build. Then we pretty much have the whole structure on top of here complete, but of course it will still need a roof. And for this top roof, I would go for the thatch ramps again. Although if you're using the Viking skin, of course, it doesn't really matter, but I would still use the thatch variant eventually for the skin. Doesn't matter what material you use to build it with, of course, if you're using the skins. But yeah, we want to go across. Unfortunately, of course, it doesn't quite look as thatch. So if you want to replace it with maybe some wood instead, maybe flip around the wood textures to still get a little bit of something different than the rest of the roof, that is totally fine, of course, especially if you're worried about decay rates and stuff like that. We're just going for the hope that one day thatch ramps will also be able to look like proper thatch as well, to mix and match them with the roof pieces. But for now, we'll just fill in this entirely from one side to the other. So very simple. And then, of course, the other part is going to be the exact same. So yeah, we just want to add all these pieces in to create the final addition to the roof, which will make sure that our longhouse is gonna look very nice indeed. It's a very big build, of course, maybe a little bit too big, but it will be a very cool base to use because you will definitely have the space in here to do pretty much whatever you need to do. Yeah, it is definitely a lot of room available, and of course perfect little Viking vibe, well, not little, perfect Viking vibes to embrace here on Ragnarok, or even later once we get Fjordur, of course. So for now we'll just fill all these pieces in. There we go, we've got a nice roof ready to go. Then we want to take out our wooden beams again, get them all the way across the top layer here, just like that, all the way from one side to the other. And of course, if you want to add some extra details for the Viking skins, have the deco box on the end first, and then we can add in our slope walls at the end to have that additional little bit of detail going on and those Viking vibes. And that means we have finished the roofs, and there's only a few minor little detailing bits that we can add on the inside. First of all, it is actually still here. What you could do if you wanted to is have some of these railings going from one beam or one pillar to the other, just as a bit of support, basically. Looks quite nice. Just a little bit of extra detail here on the inside to make it more interesting, but of course adds a bunch of extra structures. So if you're close to the limit, that might not be as necessary to add, and you might want some furniture instead. But yeah, just a little bit of extra detail here to make it feel more real. Speaking of those supports, we actually want to add those here as well. What we want to do first is add one upside down here and then one along the side, and we're going to do that wherever we can line them up with one of these pillars. So we're just going to go along the sides and add these in wherever we have one of these pillars, just as additional details. Definitely not necessary, but again, it just looks a little bit nicer, looks a little bit more real that way, but definitely up to you. Wouldn't add one here because there's nothing to connect to. Again, for the next one, there's nothing to connect to. And then the last one here, we can, of course, again, connect back up. And then there's no more, of course, because we have the big wall here. Same thing on the other side, of course. We just want to repeat the process wherever we can and actually match it up with those at the side. There we go. Just want to follow these along. Again, just to add a little bit of details in here to make it look all a little bit nicer. And if you have the limit available, then why not? You know, adds a little bit more shape to it all. We can, of course, continue that here at the top as well. Slightly more difficult in these sections. You want to start with those, and then you want to have these going across from one side to the other, just as little extra supports. The next one, of course, would be right around here. Again, we're lining them up with these pillars that we have down below. So this one would stop right over here, which is fine. Get them coming down on the other side. And you can decide, of course, how often you want to do this. Do you want to have them every other 2? Or maybe you want to have them every 4. That is a decision you can make for yourself, but it does add a little bit of extra detail. So yeah, if you're not struggling with a build limit, then I think this is a pretty nice addition to have. Pretty much a little bit of like proper beams and scaffolding to support your build with. So yeah, we want to make sure that we add them all the way along. Just as a bit of detail. And yeah, we want to have them every 2. Here we want to make sure to continue going across from one side to the next. And place them all down. For some reason, sometimes it doesn't tell me I've got support, but I can clearly still place them there. Yeah, we want to just keep going and add those in. I think you get the gist of this. I'll just quickly finish it. So basically every 2, you want to add these wherever we had the pillars, just as a little bit of support, unless it doesn't make sense. Like here, for example, probably wouldn't do that because it doesn't make sense, because the shape of the roof won't really allow it nicely, like it would kind of end just here. So I probably would leave those out. So there we go. Once we finish, that just means we have those little extra support beams basically going around the place to add a little bit more shape to it all. And there we go. That means we have a giant Viking Longhouse based on the one from Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And yeah, this will definitely serve quite well as your main Viking base, because it is huge, plenty of space inside with the aviary on top, the main big hall, of course, in the middle, where even your bigger tames can easily fit inside and be bred in safety. You've got a crafting hall at the back, plenty of rooms for your personal bedrooms, greenhouses, storage, crafting, whatever you need. I'm pretty sure you can find a place here. And even along the side, you have more spots to park tames or have extra storage or whatever you need. Quite a cool build in my opinion, and yeah, very happy with the way it turned out, and also very happy to have made it to the end of this tutorial, because it was quite a long one. It is a very big build. So this is the final result of my Viking house, using, of course, the premium cosmetic, the Viking Builder skins. It's definitely something that I can recommend if you're doing Viking builds and you maybe plan on doing more, because as you can see, there's a lot of things in this skin. Not only do you have all the build skins, but you also have a lot of decoration options, like these boats, you have little netting, you have these cool little entrances with the bones, you have plenty of statues, marketplaces, and all sorts of other things that you can actually apply to your builds as well. You can see I've used some of these bones, which are applied to a large deco box, or a medium one, I think. And then we have some of them actually around the building as well to add in some extra details. There's plenty of banners, shields, of course, proper Viking shields are in there. And of course, these lovely statues that you can use at the end of your roofs that definitely add an extra twist to them. I've also used the Megalodon trophy from the Summer Bash event, a very cool one to add as well. Definitely fits the vibe, but mostly it is just those Viking skins, which are really nice for a build like this to transform it. And applying the skins is actually very easy. If you followed along with the tutorial, everything that I made out of stone, you want to use the stone skin. So either the stone walls, the normal structure skin, or the one for the roofs. Actually, no. For the roofs, you also want to use the normal structure skins, because we used ramps, and on the ramps, you use the normal structure skins, not the roofs. Then everything that made out of thatch, that's what you want to use the thatch skins for, so that you get this little look. And then, of course, the wooden things you want to change into the wooden skins for both the normal structures as well as for the roofs and for the actual ramps here to get a really cool roof. I've also painted the roof. Kind of forgot which blue I used, but I think it was one of the darker blue tones. Just played around with that a little bit to slightly get a different hue, because otherwise there's a lot of wood in this build and this makes it stand out a little bit more. Yeah, that is kind of the way that I transformed this entire thing with the Viking cosmetics. You can see for the windows here, I've still got the big windows. This is just the narrow one. And then for most of these at the bottom, as you can see, I use the round variant. Of course, if you're building this out of greenhouse, which I've done for the first 4, so 2 on this side, 2 on the other side, there's no windows, of course, and you can't see anything because of these skins, but on the inside, there's a lot of greenery growing. So actually very useful to use in a base like this. But you can see a very big base, very nice to use, and you can see some of the statues here along the entrances to add extra details to it, as well as all the banners and the shields to really bring it all to life, as well as all the other decorations that are part of these skins, which really help transform your build to the next level. We have some more statues here, a lovely balcony here at the back, of course. I'm really quite happy with this build. So let's take a good look around the outside. As you've seen, there's plenty of space to park some of your tames around here as well, in all these different little bits that we have along the sides. You can definitely use that as a little bit of your stables, but of course the main hall is big enough to have even some of the biggest creatures out there. As you can see, quite easily you can fit in a breeding pair of archers and, you know, do all your breeding here, keep them safe. We got some of the kuka skins here, which are absolutely awesome, and this is the grill, also very cool. And as I said, to the side here we have all these greenhouses, so we can actually grow our stuff. You wouldn't know a thing unless you don't have the skin installed, of course. But yeah, we can easily grow things here. We have the same thing on a few of these other sides. So yeah, we have one over here. We have another one over here on this side. And then finally at the opposite side of this one, we have another one. So yeah, 4 in total. Plenty of greenhouse space, I think. The only thing that I added that isn't in the tutorial is these banners, which are applied to a trophy. So the trophy hangs right here, and because the banners would otherwise be hanging in nothingness, basically what I've done is add a bunch of beams across to kind of connect to the 2 points. So 1 point is here, 1 point is there, and I've done that for these that are connected to the walkway, and I've also added some beams in here to have another layer of these banners coming down from a different point. So we have also some other beams to connect to those, just to get those large banners down flowing, which is definitely a really cool way to decorate your Viking hall. As you can see, we got some Rexes in here as well, using the Paleo mod, as well as some UTs from the Paleo Ascension variants mod, which definitely are very cool and mean looking for sure. But as you can see, definitely a bunch of space here on the inside. So also, if you're using this as a proper survival base, you won't run out of space. Then we have a little breeding corner over here. Gigantoraptor ready. We got incubators. We got air conditioning. I've got a dino terminal instead of the cryo fridge. But yeah, otherwise everything is available here to use in the dino related activities. Of course, the side entrance right over there on the other side. A bit of the Viking vibes over here with the tables serving some nice food and chairs ready to have a grand feast in here. And then here at the back, of course, we have the actual crafting hall. So we have everything, even the biggest structures can fit inside. We have the industrial forge there as well. Plenty of vaults around, replicator, and then we have a little room to the side just decorated with the statue and some wood. But of course, you could use that for more storage or whatever you want. We got a little bedroom on the first floor, actually, just in case you find that practical, or quick respawn if needed. Then up here, of course, we have more space for more crafting, little kitchen and everything, as well as a proper bedroom up here. Nice and cozy for you and your tribe mates. Of course, a balcony for your flyers. These dragons, by the way, are from the Dragon Kingdom mod. Really cool mod. Really cool dragons, as you can clearly see. They are very, very cool. And of course, you have all these walkways as well, where you could park some flyers if you wanted to. But of course, it also provides you access to the actual aviary on top here, where you could park a bunch of flyers. They were all neatly lined up, but they seem to have scuffled around a little bit. I'm not sure why, because there's nothing attacking here, but yeah, they've been shuffling around a little bit. But you can see you can quite easily park a bunch of flyers in there if you need to. So yeah, all in all, a very big base, but I think it's a very nice base. Hopefully you enjoyed this giant build tutorial. If you did and you made it all the way to the end, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because your support means the world to me. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again in the next video or stream. For now, goodbye.